Imagine this. You and your younger brother are right outside your house, ready to enter, just a few minutes after the 10 p.m. COVID curfew. And suddenly, police show up and take you and your brother inside their car. Your bodies are found 2 days later in the morgue. Well, this is no hypothetical for 22-year-old Benson Njuri Nigwa and 19-year-old Mutara Nigwa. On the 5th August 2021, these two Kenyan boys had undergone the horror story known as police brutality. What is it? It is the excessive and unwarranted use of force by law enforcement. It is an extreme form of police misconduct and/or violence, and it is a civil rights violation. There are many different types of police misconduct, which may include sexual coercion, as well as a wrongful search and arrest, and imprisonment, denial of medical care, and what could be seen as the most common, excessive use of force. Under reasonable circumstances, police may have to use physical force to apprehend armed suspects and criminals known to have a history of violence, but only when necessary. But more often than not, officers partake in unjustified use of force, which include unlawful takedowns, baton beatings, and unwarranted use of taser and firearms. A lot of these lead to serious injury or even death. Police are now playing the role of authority and not being a service that citizens can rely on. Today, we will be focusing on 4 countries which often face a lot of police brutality, namely Venezuela, Kenya, India, and the USA. Over the years, there has been an increase in police brutality in India, Venezuela, and Kenya, and there's been a significant decrease in the USA over the years. This is due to the awareness around the subject. Who is affected? Well, in USA, it's racism and prejudice faced by the many people of color. At the rate of which Black Americans are killed by police is more than twice as high as the rate for white Americans. In India, Venezuela, and Kenya, it is the classism and prejudice faced by the less fortunate. There are a plethora of reasons why the heinous act is committed, but during the COVID-19 pandemic, rates had increased. For example, in Kenya, the regulations stated that there shall be a curfew that must be strictly followed. Instead of the police doing the right thing and taking the wrongdoers to jail, they would beat them senseless. This would happen to anyone around, and sometimes even before the curfew time. Real-life cases. Venezuela, January 2019, around 1 p.m. The case of Juan Diego Rodriguez, a pseudonym. Ana Luisa Rodriguez heard someone breaking down her front door. An officer dressed in black FAES uniform came in and said that a criminal was hiding in the neighborhood. A neighbor would later tell her that a Special Actions Force officer had previously shown her a picture of a group of young men, including her son, and asked about their whereabouts. She told the officer that the only people that were home were her son, her daughter, and her daughter's 2 children. She and her daughter wept as they were taken outside, and an officer grabbed the young children and put them on the front porch. Her son was still inside. An officer asked her about him, including what he did for a living. She said he was a computer phone repairman. An officer assured her that those inside were only taking her son's statement. A senior Special Actions Force officer arrived and went to Juan Diego's room. The room door was locked. Ana Luisa Rodriguez offered to speak to her son and permitted the senior officer to break down the door, as long as they did not hurt him. The officers told her, her daughters, and the children to go to the neighbor's house because her son was taking a statement. At the neighbor's house, a Special Actions Force officer told her that her son was wanted on 20 drug trafficking charges. They heard 6 shots. Soon after, officers snapped a photo of Rodriguez's dead body beside a gun. A photo was published eventually in the media reports, calling Rodriguez a criminal. Officers tossed the body in the back of their vehicle and took it to the hospital. Autopsy reports determined that 1 bullet hit Rodriguez in the heart and another in the right side, his mother said. The death certificate, which the Human Rights reviewed, noted that the cause of death was a cardiogenic shock and a cardiac injury caused by firearm. Ana Luisa Rodriguez testified before investigative police officers soon after the killing. As of August, 7 months later, neither she or any neighbor to her knowledge had been testified to the prosecutors about the case. She said she wants justice for the extrajudicial execution of her son. They can't decide who lives and dies, she said. India, 19th June 2020. The case of Ponraj Jayaraj and his son Benkins Jayaraj. The father and son, who were hauled over by the police, were taken to jail. When their friends and family went to the stations, they heard screams from inside. In the morning, when they were let out, they walked out dripping in blood, showing that they had clearly been tortured. Both the father and son died hours later due to internal injuries, and when the police were brought into questioning, they declined to comment, saying that this was now under a federal investigation. As a group, we held a survey and asked questions about the topic on hand. One response that stood out was the question, how has your country's government dealt with police brutality? And 72% stated that most cases are disregarded. When we had asked about personal experiences, some people had this to say. My cousin was picked up by police, but he was never seen alive again. Another said, once my uncle and I were stopped by traffic police. My uncle asked the police to clarify why they had stopped him. The officer began beating him with his baton and verbally insulting him, stating that he would make him disappear and his family would never find him. Another shocking response was someone stating being beaten during a demonstration which is peaceful, and there were many more. Majority of the responses I mentioned were from Kenyan citizens who have gone through this traumatic event. Now imagine the people who haven't been able to speak up, in fear or in a situation where action will not take place and people won't get their justice. The objective is not only to spread awareness about police brutality, but to also prevent it from happening again. Due to incompetence and the department not taking responsibility, the issue is rarely reported, and that must come to an end. Stand up against police brutality, share verified information, and report anything you see. It is essential for all of us to help prevent any other instances. And just like the BLM and George Floyd movement, together we can spread awareness and avoid police brutality.
Thank you for the support. Please fill in the survey in the description, and if you like the video, share it.